3 days had passed since the offering that changed everything. Tae-Ho lay in a bed in the medical area. His chest was wrapped in bandages. His arm was in a brace. Every breath hurt. But he was alive. Bar, the woman who worked in the medical area, checked on him every few hours. She had been one of the first to step forward in the Great Hall. Now she took care of him like he was family. "You need to rest," she told him. "Your body is broken in many places." "My body is broken," Tae-Ho agreed. "But my spirit is not." She smiled at that. It was the first time she had smiled in years. Outside the medical area, things were different on Vega 7. The humans walked with their heads up now. They looked each other in the eyes. They spoke in voices that were not whispers. The guards still walked the corridors, but they were nervous. They kept their weapons close, but they did not use them. They could feel the change in the air. They knew that if they pushed too hard, the humans would push back. The overlords had locked themselves in their tower at the top of the station. They had not come out since the offering. They were making plans, sending messages to their home world, trying to figure out what to do. But it was too late for plans. Something had shifted. Something fundamental. The humans of Vega 7 were no longer afraid. Old Dong-Su came to visit Tae-Ho every day. He brought food and water and stories about what was happening on the station. "They are organizing," Dong-Su told him. "The workers in the cargo area stopped unloading ships until the overlords agreed to give us more food. The people in the living areas are sharing what they have with each other. It is like we are a community for the first time." Tae-Ho listened and felt warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with his injuries. This was what he had hoped for. Not just one moment of courage, but a lasting change. A fire that would keep burning. Nand Bai came too. She brought her friends, other workers from the food area. They sat around Tae-Ho's bed and talked about the future. "We cannot stay here forever," Bai said. "The overlords will call for help. More ships will come. More soldiers. We need to be ready." "How can we be ready?" asked Hyan, the man who fixed machines. "We have no weapons. No training. We are just workers." Geo spoke up. He had become one of the leaders among the younger humans. His voice was strong and clear. "We have something better than weapons," he said. "We have each other. We have the knowledge of this station. We have been working here for years. We know every corridor, every machine, every system. The overlords do not. They sit in their tower and give orders. But we are the ones who make this station run." The others nodded. It was true. Without the human workers, Vega 7 would fall apart. The overlords needed them. And for the first time, the humans understood their own power. Yuna came on the 4th day. She brought Hana with her. The little girl ran to Tae-Ho's bed and climbed up carefully, making sure not to touch his injuries. "Hello," Hana said. "Are you feeling better?" "I am feeling much better," Tae-Ho said. "Especially now that you are here." Hana smiled. It was a bright, happy smile, the kind that only children can give. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. It was a flower made from colored paper. "I made this for you," she said. "Mama helped me. It is to say thank you for saving us." Tae-Ho took the paper flower. It was simple and a little crooked. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "I will keep this forever," he said. His eyes were wet, but he did not care. Yuna watched her daughter and the man who had saved them. She felt grateful in a way she could not put into words. This stranger had risked everything for them. He had stood alone against a monster. And in doing so, he had shown everyone what it meant to be human. "When you are well," Yuna said, "come have dinner with us. We do not have much, but we would be honored to share with you." "I would like that very much," Tae-Ho said. On the 5th day, Something happened that no one expected. The devourer came to the medical area. It did not break down the walls. It did not attack. It simply appeared in the doorway, its massive body somehow fitting into the space. The people in the medical area screamed and ran, but Taeho stayed in his bed. He could not run, even if he wanted to. The creature moved toward him. It stopped at the foot of his bed. "You are healing," it said. "Slowly," Taeho replied. His heart was pounding, but his voice was calm. "Good. I want you to live." "Why?" "So you can eat me later?" The devourer made that strange sound again, the one that was almost like a laugh. "No, I will not eat you. I will not eat any of your people." Taeho stared at the monster. "Why?" "Because you showed me something I had never seen before. In all my existence, I have consumed beings who were afraid, who begged, who broke. But you did not break. You stood. And in standing, you made others stand with you." The creature paused. Its many voices became quiet, almost thoughtful. "I have eaten worlds," it continued, "but I have never changed one. You changed this world with nothing but your will. That is a power I do not have. A power I do not understand." "It is not power," Taeho said. "It is just being human. Then being human is more than I thought." The devourer turned to leave. But at the doorway, it stopped. "The overlords will call for help," it said. "More of their kind will come. They will try to punish you for what you have done. We know. When they come, I will help you." Taeho could not believe what he was hearing. "You will help us? Why?" The creature turned its head. It had no eyes, but somehow Taeho knew it was looking at him. "Because I am hungry for something new. I am tired of fear. I want to see what courage tastes like when it grows." Then it was gone. Taeho lay in his bed, trying to understand what had just happened. The devourer, the monster that had killed so many of his people, was now on their side? It did not make sense. But then, nothing about the past few days made sense. One man had stepped forward. Just one. And everything had changed. The news of the devourer's visit spread across the station. People were confused at first, then amazed. The monster that had terrified them for years was now their ally. It was impossible. It was wonderful. Old Dong-Su laughed when he heard the news. "Now I have seen everything," he said. "A monster learning from humans. What is next? The stars themselves bowing down?" Yunbai shook her head in wonder. Taeho did not just save a mother and child. He saved all of us. And he even changed the heart of the thing that wanted to kill us. Ji-ho felt his flame burning brighter than ever. "This is what humans can do," he said. "This is our power. Not weapons. Not technology. Just the refusal to give up." On the 7th day, Taeho was able to walk. He was slow and he needed help, but he walked. He went to the Great Hall, where everything had started. The red circle was still there on the floor, but it did not seem so frightening anymore. Humans had gathered there. Hundreds of them. They had come to see the man who had stood up. The man who had started the fire. Taeho looked at them. He saw old faces and young faces. He saw fear and hope mixed together. He saw his people. "I am not a hero," he said. His voice was still weak, but in the silence of the hall, everyone heard him. "I am just a man who could not watch a child be killed. Any one of you would have done the same. But we did not," someone called out. "We were too afraid." "You are not afraid now," Taeho said. "You are here. You are standing. That is what matters. Not what we did in the past, but what we do next." He looked around the hall, at the walls that had seen so much death, at the floor where so many innocent people had fallen, at the doorway where the devourer had come so many times. "They threw a woman and her child before a monster," he said. and they expected us to watch and do nothing. But we are human. We do not do nothing. We stand. We fight. We protect each other. He paused, letting the words sink in. The overlords thought they had broken us. They thought that fear was enough to control us forever. They were wrong, because fear fades. But hope grows. And now we have hope. He raised his hand, the one that still worked. Hannah's paper flower was clutched in his fingers. For the children who deserve a better future. For the people we have lost. For the dream of freedom. We stand together. The crowd raised their hands. Old Dongsu, Yunbai, Jiho, Yuna and Hana, Buora and Hyan and Sumin. Hundreds of others. They stood together. And in the shadows at the edge of the hall, the devourer watched. It did not move. It did not speak. But if it could smile, it would have. Humanity was rising. And nothing in the universe would stop them. The first person to reach Taeho was old Dongsu. He walked past the guards like they were not there. His legs were shaking. His heart was pounding. He was 73 years old, and he had never done anything brave in his life. But today was different. Today, something inside him had broken free. He stood next to Taeho and helped him up. Taeho looked at him with surprise. "What are you doing?" Taeho asked. His voice was weak. He was leaning heavily on the old man. "What I should have done years ago," Dongsu said, standing up. Yunbai was next. She was crying, but her jaw was set and her eyes were hard. She took her place on Taeho's other side. "My brother died fighting," she said. "I always thought he was foolish. Now I know he was the only one of us who was truly alive." Jiho came forward. His face was pale with fear, but his steps were steady. He was young and strong, and he put himself between the devourer and the three humans. "I have never known what it means to be free," he said, "but I think I am starting to understand." More people came. A woman named Bayera, who worked in the medical area. A man named Hyan, who fixed machines. A teenager named Sumin, who had been hiding behind her parents. They were not soldiers. They were not heroes. They were just people. Workers and cleaners and cooks and mechanics. People who had lived their whole lives in fear. But fear was not enough to stop them anymore. The guards looked at each other. They had weapons. They could shoot. But there were too many humans now. If they started shooting, it would become a fight. And in a fight, anything could happen. "Stop!" One of the guards shouted. "All of you, step back. This is your final warning." No one listened. The crowd kept moving forward. 10 people, 20, 30. Soon there were 50 humans standing in and around the red circle. They faced the devourer together. On the platform, the overlords were making sounds of anger. Their gray skin had turned darker, a sign that they were upset. "Kill them." One of them screamed. "Kill them all." The guards raised their weapons. Their fingers touched the triggers, but before they could fire, the devourer raised one of its massive arms. "Stop." The word cut through the hall like a blade. The guards froze. Even the overlords went silent. The devourer looked at the humans standing before it. There were so many of them now. Old and young, men and women, strong and weak. They were shaking with fear. Some were crying, but none of them ran. "This is unexpected," the creature said. Its many voices sounded strange, almost confused. "You stand together. You face death together. Why?" Taeho stepped forward. Dongsu and Yunbai tried to hold him back, but he shook them off. He could barely walk. His chest was broken. His arm was useless. Blood covered half his face. But he walked until he was standing right in front of the monster again. "Because that is what we do," he said. "We are human. We are weak. We are small. We live short lives, and we are afraid of so many things. But we have one thing that you will never understand. And what is that? Each other. The devourer was silent. It looked at Taeho, then at the crowd of humans behind him. They were still afraid. It could smell their fear. But they were not running. They were standing. You think this changes anything? The creature asked. You think that because you stand together, I cannot kill you all? I have eaten worlds. I have consumed civilizations. You are nothing to me. Maybe, Taeho said. But you are something to us. You are a test. And today, we pass. Yuna had finally moved. She had picked up Hana and carried her to where Taeho stood. The little girl looked at the man who had saved them. Thank you, Hana said in her small voice. Thank you for standing up for us. Taeho looked at the child. Despite everything, despite the pain and the blood and the fear, he smiled. You are welcome, little one. Hana reached out and took his hand. Her small fingers wrapped around his damaged ones. It should have hurt. Instead, it felt like warmth spreading through his whole body. Mama says that when you are scared, you should think of something good, Hana said. What do you think of? Taeho did not have to think about his answer. I think of this. Right now, all these people standing together. That is the good thing. The devourer watched this exchange. It did not understand. Love was not something it knew. Kindness was far into it. But it could see that something was happening. Something that it had never seen in all its centuries of existence. The humans were not breaking. They were getting stronger. Old Dong-su stood straighter. The weight he had carried for 3 years seemed lighter now. His wife was gone, but she would be proud of him. Finally, after all this time, he was being the man she had always believed he could be. By wiped her tears. They were not tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of something else. Something that felt like freedom. Jiho felt the flame inside him burning bright. This was what it meant to be alive. Not just existing. Not just surviving, living, fighting, standing. The other humans in the crowd felt it too. Something was changing. Something was waking up. It was like a fire spreading from person to person, heart to heart. For 30 years, they had been slaves. For 30 years, they had lived in fear. But fear could not last forever. Nothing could. The overlords saw what was happening. They saw their careful control slipping away. And they were afraid. Devour. One of them shouted. Kill them. Kill them now, before this spreads. The creature turned its head toward the overlords. Slowly, it rose to its full height. It towered over everyone in the hall, a mountain of shadow and teeth and claws. You give me orders? It said. Its voices were cold now, dangerous. You think you control me? The overlord who had spoken stepped back. His thin body was shaking. We feed you, he said. We give you offerings. We have a deal. You have nothing, the devourer said. I tolerated you because it was convenient, because you brought me prey that did not fight back. But now, it looked at the humans again. Now things are different. Taeho watched this exchange with wonder. Was the devourer actually changing sides? No, that was too much to hope for. The creature was a monster. It did not have sides. It only had hunger, but even monsters could be surprised. And right now, the devourer was very, very surprised. These humans, it said, they are not like the others you have given me. They have fire in them. They have something worth consuming. Taeho tensed. This was it. The creature was going to attack, but the devourer did not attack. Instead, it did something no one expected. It sat down. Its massive body folded in on itself until it was resting on the floor like a strange, terrifying statue. its arms wrapped around its body, its mouth closed. "I will watch," it said. "I will wait. I want to see what happens next." The overlords stared. The guards stared. The humans stared. No one knew what to do. And in the silence, Taeho realized something. They had won. Not completely. Not forever. But for this moment, they had won. He looked at the people around him. At Yuna and Hannah. At Dongsu and Yunbai and Jiho. At all the others who had stepped forward. "This is just the beginning," he said. "We stood up once. Now we have to keep standing. Every day. Until they understand that we will never be their prey again." The crowd nodded. They understood. The fire was lit, and it would never go out. The silence in the great hall was so thick that you could feel it pressing against your skin. No one moved. No one breathed. Every eye was on the man who had stepped forward. Taeho stood with his back to Yuna and Hannah. His shoulders were not wide. His arms were not thick with muscle. He was just a man. A tired man with worn clothes and dirty boots. But he stood there like a wall between the mother and child and the monster that wanted to eat them. The devourer tilted its head. It had never seen this before. In all the years of the offering, no one had ever stood in its way. The humans always screamed. They always ran. They always fell. But they never fought. They never stood. This was new. On the high platform, the three overlords looked at each other. Their black eyes showed nothing, but their thin fingers gripped the arms of their chairs. This was not supposed to happen. The offering was a ritual. It was a way to keep the humans afraid. It was a way to remind them who was in control. But this man was not afraid. Or maybe he was afraid but did not care. "Remove him," one of the overlords commanded. The guards stepped forward. There were 6 of them, all wearing black armor and carrying those blue glowing weapons. They surrounded Taeho. "Step back," one of them said. "You are interrupting the offering." Taeho did not move. He looked at the guard who had spoken. "I will not. If you do not step back, you will die with them. Then I will die with them." The words hung in the air. Simple words. Honest words. The guard did not know what to say. He had given orders 1,000 times. Everyone always obeyed. Fear made them obey. But this man did not obey. Behind Taeho, Yuna stared at his back. She did not know this man. She had maybe seen him once or twice in the corridors. He was no one to her. A stranger. But here he was, standing between her daughter and death. "Why?" She whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Taeho did not turn around. His eyes stayed on the devourer. "Because someone has to." In the crowd, people began to whisper. Old Dongsu, who had known Taeho for 2 years, felt something twist in his chest. It was a feeling he had not felt in a long time. It was shame. He remembered his wife. She had been taken in an offering 3 years ago. He had stood in this very hall and watched as the devourer took her. He had done nothing. He had told himself that there was nothing he could do. He had told himself that at least he survived. But now, watching Taeho, he wondered. What if he had stepped forward? What if he had stood in front of his wife? Would it have changed anything? He did not know. He would never know. And that not knowing burned like fire in his heart. Eun-by. The woman who worked in the food area looked down at her feet. She could not watch. She remembered her brother. He had tried to fight back once, years ago, when the overlords first came. They had killed him in front of everyone. They had made her watch. After that, she had learned to be silent. She had learned to look away. But looking away did not make the guilt go away. It just pushed it down, deeper and deeper, until it became a weight she carried everywhere. G-ho. The young man who had once smiled at Yuna clenched his fists. He was 22 years old. He had been born on this station. He had never known freedom. He had never known what it was like to live without fear. The overlords and the devourer were just part of life to him. He had accepted it, but now, watching Taeho, he felt something stir inside him. It was small, like a tiny flame in a dark room. He did not know what it was, but it was warm. The lead guard raised his weapon. "This is your last warning. Step back or die." Taeho took a deep breath. He could feel his heart beating hard in his chest. He could feel sweat on his palms. He was afraid. Of course he was afraid. Only a fool would not be afraid. But fear was not the same as giving up. Fear was just a feeling. It could not make him move. Only he could make himself move. And he chose to stay. "Do what you have to do," he said to the guard. "But I am not moving." The guard's finger moved toward the trigger. In 1 second, Taeho would be dead. One shot, and it would be over. The offering would continue. Everything would go back to normal. But then, something strange happened. The devourer made a sound. It was not a growl or a roar. It was something else. Something that almost sounded like interest. It pushed past the guards. They stumbled back, too afraid to touch the creature. The devourer moved toward Taeho until it was standing right in front of him. Its shadow fell over him like a blanket of darkness. Taeho looked up at the monster. It was so close that he could smell it. It smelled like old blood and empty spaces. Its teeth moved in its mouth, making a sound like bones breaking. The creature leaned down. Its face, if you could call it a face, came close to Taeho's. He could feel its breath, cold and wrong. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. The man and the monster. The prey and the predator. Then the devourer spoke. Its voice was not like any voice Taeho had ever heard. It was like many voices speaking at once, all twisted together into something that hurt to hear. "You do not run," it said. "You do not beg. Why?" Taeho swallowed. His throat was dry. His legs wanted to shake. But he made himself answer. "Because they are innocent," he said. "The mother, the child, they did nothing wrong. They do not deserve to die." "All things die," the devourer said. "It is the way of all flesh. Maybe, but not like this. Not as food for something that does not need to eat them. You do this because you can, because it gives you power, because it makes us afraid." The devourer was silent for a moment. Then it made that sound again, that sound that was almost like a laugh. "You are interesting," it said. "Most humans are empty. They are hollow things, full of fear and nothing else. But you have something inside you, something that burns. It's called being human," Taeho said. Behind him, Yuna held Hana close. The little girl had stopped crying. She was watching Taeho with wide eyes. She did not understand everything that was happening, but she understood one thing. This man was trying to save them. "Mama," she whispered. "Is that man a hero?" Yuna did not answer. She did not know what to say. She had stopped believing in heroes a long time ago. The devourer straightened up. It looked at Taeho for another long moment. Then it turned its head toward the overlords on their high platform. "This one has fire," it said. "I want to see how long it burns." The overlords did not speak. They did not need to. Everyone knew what the devourer meant. It was going to play with him. It was going to test him. And when it was done, it was going to kill him anyway. The guards stepped back. The crowd held their breath. And Taeho stood alone in the red circle, facing a monster that had never been beaten. He did not know if he could win. He did not even know if winning was possible. But he knew one thing. He would not run. He would not beg. He would stand, and he would fight, until he could not stand anymore, and maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. The devourer moved first. One of its long arms swung toward Taeho. The claws cut through the air with a sound like tearing cloth. They were fast, faster than anything the big should be able to move. But Taeho was ready. He had been watching the creature. He had seen how it moved. He threw himself to the side, rolling across the cold metal floor. The claws missed him by less than the width of a finger. The crowd gasped. No one had ever seen someone dodge the devourer. No one had ever seen someone try. Taeho got back to his feet. His heart was beating so hard that he could hear it in his ears. His hands were shaking, but he was alive. For now, the devourer turned to face him. Its mouth opened wide, showing row after row of those terrible teeth. "Fast," it said. "Good. This will be more fun." It attacked again. This time, two arms came at once, one high and one low. Taeho ducked under the first and jumped over the second. He was not graceful. He was not trained. He moved like a man who had spent his life lifting boxes and sleeping on hard beds. But he moved. The third arm caught him hit him in the chest, and sent him flying across the circle. He landed hard on his back, all the air knocked out of his lungs. Pain exploded through his body. Something in his chest made a cracking sound. The crowd made a sound, a mix of fear and sadness. This was it. This was how it always ended. The devourer would finish him now. But Taeho did not stay down. He pushed himself up onto his hands and knees. Blood dripped from his mouth onto the floor. His chest screamed with every breath. But he stood up. He looked at the devourer. "Is that all you have?" The creature stopped. For a moment, it seemed confused. Why was this human not dead? Why was he still standing? Why was he not afraid? On the platform, the overlords watched with their black eyes. They had seen the devourer kill hundreds of humans. They had never seen one fight back like this. It was strange. It was wrong. It was interesting. "The human is broken," one of them said. "It should be dead soon." "Perhaps," said another. "But look at it. It still fights. Even when fighting means nothing." "That is what humans do," said the third. "They fight even when there is no hope." "It is foolish, is it? Or is it something else?" They did not have an answer. In the crowd, old Dong-Su felt tears on his cheeks. He did not know when he had started crying. He watched Taeho stand broken and bleeding, and he remembered his wife again. Her name had been Sunya. She had been kind and gentle and strong. When the guards came for her, she had not cried. She had looked at Dong-Su and smiled. She had told him to keep living. He had kept living. But he had not really been alive. He had just been existing, going through the days like a ghost, waiting for the end. Now, watching Taeho, he felt something wake up inside him. Something that had been sleeping for 3 years. Something that felt like hope. Eun-Bai was crying too. She thought about her brother, about how he had died fighting. At the time, she had thought he was foolish. Why fight when you cannot win? Why die for nothing? But now she understood. Her brother had not died for nothing. He had died for something he believed in. He had died standing up. And that was worth more than 100 years of living on your knees. Jiho's small flame was growing. It was spreading through his chest, making him feel warm for the first time in his life. He did not know what to do with this feeling, but he knew he wanted more of it. The devourer attacked again. This time, it used all of its arms at once. It was not playing anymore. It was trying to end this. Tae-Ho could not dodge all of them. He knew that. So he did something else. He ran forward, toward the creature, not away from it. The arms closed around empty air. Taeho slid under the devourer's body and came up on the other side. For one moment, he was behind it. For one moment, he had a chance. He grabbed one of the creature's legs and pulled with all his strength. Thought it was not enough to hurt the devourer. It was not even enough to move it, but it was enough to surprise it. The creature spun around, its arms swinging wildly. One of them hit Taiho again, this time in the shoulder. He heard something pop. His arm went numb. He fell to his knees. "Interesting," the devourer said. It sounded pleased. "You know you cannot win. You know you will die. But still you fight. Why?" Taiho looked up at the monster. His vision was getting blurry. He had lost a lot of blood. He could feel his body starting to give up, but his spirit was still strong. "Because giving up is worse than dying," he said. "Because if I stop fighting, then they win. The overlords, you, all of you who think that fear is enough to control us, that we are just animals to be herded and killed when you want." He coughed, and more blood came out. "We are not animals. We are human. And humans do not stop fighting. Not ever. Not even when there is no hope." The devourer looked at him for a long moment. Then it turned its head toward Yuna and Hana, still huddled together at the edge of the circle. "You fight for them," it said. "For strangers. For beings you do not even know. Yes. Why? They are nothing to you." Taiho shook his head. "They are everything. They are human. Like me. That makes them my family. My people. And I will not let you take them." The devourer was silent. In its long existence, it had consumed thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds. It had seen fear and despair and hopelessness. It had fed on all of them, but this was different. This human was not giving it fear. He was giving it something else. Something that tasted strange on the creature's senses. Something it had never encountered before. Defiance. Pure, burning, unbreakable defiance. "You are dying," the devourer said. "Your body is failing. Soon you will not be able to stand. Then I will fight on my knees, and when you cannot kneel, I will fight on my back, and when you cannot move at all." Taiho smiled. It was a strange smile, full of pain and blood and something that looked almost like joy. "Then I will fight with my eyes. I will look at you and let you know that you never beat me. That even in death, I am free. That you cannot touch the part of me that matters." The crowd was silent. But it was a different kind of silence now. Before, it had been the silence of fear. Now it was the silence of awe. They were watching something they had never seen before. They were watching a human being refuse to break. And in that refusal, they saw something they had forgotten. They saw Old Dong Su took a step forward. He did not know why. His legs just moved on their own. Bai took a step forward too. Beside her, Jiho did the same. One by one, people in the crowd began to move. Not everyone. Not even most. But some, a handful. A dozen. 2 dozen. They stepped toward the red circle. They stepped toward Taiho. The guards raised their weapons. The overlords stood up from their chairs, and the devourer, for the first time in its long existence, felt something it had never felt before. It felt uncertain. The space station Vega 7 floated in the darkness between stars. It was a place of metal and cold lights. Thousands of humans lived there, working under the rule of beings they called the overlords. These aliens had come to Earth 30 years ago. They did not come as friends. They came as masters. Yuna held her daughter close to her chest. The little girl was only 5 years old. Her name was Hana, and she had her mother's dark eyes and small nose. Right now, those eyes were full of tears. She did not understand what was happening. Yuna understood too well. The guards had come to their small room in the lower levels of the station. They wore black armor and carried weapons that glowed with blue light. They did not knock. They broke down the door and grabbed Yuna by the arm. "You have been chosen," one of them said. His voice was flat and empty of feeling. Chosen. Yuna knew what that word meant. Every month, the overlords picked someone from the human population. They called it the offering. The person chosen would be taken to the great hall in the center of the station. There, they would meet the Devourer. No one who met the Devourer ever came back. Yuna had lived on Vega 7 for 3 years. She had seen other women dragged away. She had heard the screams that echoed through the metal corridors. She had told herself that it would never be her. She had been wrong. "Please," she begged as they pulled her through the narrow hallways. "My daughter. Let me leave her somewhere safe, please." The guards did not answer. They did not care about her words. To them, she was not a person. She was just another offering. Hana cried and held on to her mother's neck. "Mama, I'm scared. Where are they taking us?" Yuna could not answer. What could she say? How could she explain to a child that they were going to die? The Great Hall was the largest room on the station. It was round, with high walls that went up into darkness. Hundreds of people stood around the edges, watching. Some were humans. Others were aliens of different kinds. All of them were silent. In the center of the hall, there was a circle of red light on the floor. This was where the offering stood. This was where the Devourer came. The guards threw Yuna and Hana into the circle. Yuna fell to her knees, still holding her daughter. She looked up at the crowd around her. She saw human faces. She saw people she knew. Her neighbor, an old man named Dong-Su. A woman named Yunbai, who worked in the food area. A young man named Jiho, who had once smiled at her in the corridor. None of them moved. None of them spoke. They just watched with empty eyes. Yuna understood. They were afraid. If they tried to help, they would be taken too. The overlords had taught them well. They had learned that silence was the only way to survive. Above the crowd, on a high platform, sat 3 of the overlords. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes like black stones. They wore robes of deep purple. They looked down at Yuna and Hana like they were looking at insects. "The offering is prepared," one of them said. His voice was like the sound of metal scraping against metal. "Let the Devourer come." A door opened on the far side of the hall. It was a door made of thick steel, and behind it was only darkness. But something moved in that darkness. Something big. Hana screamed and buried her face in her mother's chest. Yuna wrapped her arms around her daughter and closed her eyes. She could hear it coming. Heavy footsteps that shook the floor. The sound of breathing, deep and wet. She opened her eyes. The Devourer was not like any creature she had ever seen. It was as tall as 3 men standing on each other's shoulders. Its body was covered in black skin that looked like it was made of shadow. It had no eyes that she could see, but she knew it could sense her. It had 2 many arms, and each arm ended in claws as long as swords. Its mouth was a wide hole filled with teeth that never stopped moving. The crowd stepped back. Even from far away, they could feel the cold that came from the creature. It was not just a monster. It was something worse. It was hunger given form. It was death that walked. The Devourer stopped at the edge of the red circle. Its head turned toward Yuna and Hana. It made a sound, something between a growl and a laugh. Yuna felt her heart stop. This was the end. There was no escape. No one would help them. No one ever did. She looked at her daughter's face one last time. Hana was so small, so innocent. She had done nothing wrong. She had never hurt anyone. And now she was going to die because of the cruelty of beings who saw humans as nothing more than food. "I'm sorry," Yuna whispered. "I'm so sorry, my little one." Hana looked up at her mother. "Mama, why won't anyone help us?" It was a simple question. A child's question. but it cut deeper than any blade. Why? Why did no one help? Why did hundreds of people stand there and watch while a mother and her child were fed to a monster? Were they not human? Did they not feel anything? Yuna looked at the crowd again. She saw fear in their eyes, but she also saw shame. They knew what they were doing was wrong. They knew that their silence made them part of this evil. But they were too afraid to act. The devourer took a step forward. Then another. Its claws reached toward Yuna and Hannah. This was the moment. This was when it would end. But then something happened. Something that no one expected. A man stepped out of the crowd. He was not big. He was not strong. He was just a worker, a man who loaded boxes in the cargo area. His name was Teho, and he had lived on Vega 7 for 5 years. He had scars on his hands from hard work. He had lines on his face from hard days. He was nobody special. But he walked forward. The crowd gasped. The guards raised their weapons. The overlords stood up from their seats. Teho walked into the red circle. He stood in front of Yuna and Hannah. He faced the devourer. "Not them," he said. His voice was quiet, but in the silence of the hall, everyone heard it. "You can't have them." The devourer stopped. For the first time in anyone's memory, it hesitated. And in that moment, something changed. Something that would change everything.